We knew Derek Steele ahead of time.
Ooh, that's satisfying. I hadn't done it yet. I don't know how it's going to sound on this table. So I'll go ahead and call to order. We're running a little bit behind. It is 7:33 for our first General Council meeting here of the 2018-2019 year. I'd like to welcome everybody as the president of GPSC this year. First agenda item at the beginning of our meeting is generally this welcome and introduction from me. So I think I see a few new persons and a lot of familiar faces, but who's here for the first time? I think maybe about, all right. Actually, it's maybe about 50-50 then. Cool. Well, so if you're wondering what you've gotten yourself into, I don't know how much you've been informed prior to coming here, but Graduate and Professional Student Council is that, a student council. We are a body of graduate and professional students duly elected in any number of ways to represent our programs as well as the graduate and professional students as a whole. We organize any number of affairs, which includes our own internal affairs, which is this council you found yourself at tonight, as well as representing graduate and professional students across any number of areas of the university, whether those are committees that govern certain affairs across different departments, whether it is within the actual legislative body that governs the graduate programs across campus, or whether it's in different constituency level affairs where I appear and represent graduate and professional students for the entire campus. But insofar that we are a student council, that means we are a student government. And so we do follow some goofy rules. And so the first of which you'll see, I believe everybody's been distributed an agenda. First thing that I need to do is ask for a motion for the adoption of the agenda. Motion. So motion. Do I hear it seconded? Second. All in favor? Motion passes. Moving on to the next item. Do I hear a motion to postpone the reading and approval of the minutes? Motion. So motion. In a second? Second. All in favor? Motion passes. All right, moving on to the next agenda item. So, opening meeting introduction by your executive officers. That is myself, Clay Awesome, and we have Vice President for Academic Administrative Affairs, Diana McGreenhand. So, before we get going, though, I thought we could send it around and do our introduction of our representatives. So, if we will, we'll start over here to my left. I don't know, what is this stage?
Sorry.
Yeah, I'll never get that right. But we'll start to my left.
That would be stage left.
Yeah, and go through and introduce yourself for everyone. Perhaps name, the program or unit that you're representing. If this is your first time in GPSC, or if it's not, perhaps some of the things that you've done for GPSC in the past, and anything else you would like to add. Hand it over.
Hello, I'm Emily. I'm a fourth year PhD student. I'm here representing the WGSS department.
Hi, I'm Lacey. I'm a fourth year PhD student and I'm a member at large.
Hi, I'm Tori. I'm a first year PhD student and this is my first time here. We're all doing it. Okay. Anna, third year PhD, LGBTQ advisory board.
I'm Rachel, zoology department. Last year I served on the Rec Centers Advisory Board, and this year I'll be on your executive board and grad council.
I'm Caleb. I'm a second year PhD communication studies. This isn't technically my first meeting. Last year I served as a proxy for the emergency meeting for Lindy.
I'm Alex. I'm a fourth year PhD student in communication studies. I was not officially with GPSC last year, but sort of did some behind the scenes work with a position on Carbondale Council.
And I'm Lindy, and I'm a second year PhD student, and I was a representative last year, and this year I'm also serving in the capacity of executive board member.
I'm Tasha. I'm here to represent the English department, and I'm a first year master's student.
I'm Brett from CCJ. This is my second year in school way.
I'm Derek. This is my third year. Been on graduate council as a representative for the GPSC, been on the finance advisory board with Diana and Jordan here, and I'm going to be serving on the executive board with Rachel as well.
I'm Kyle Childress.
Sorry, I've kind of.
But I've been interrupted. Kyle Childress. This is my second year on GPSC. I've been on the parking appeals board, and I'm a third year law student.
I'm Matt, third year law student.
third year here.
Travis, third-year law student, second year here, member at large.
Jake, third-year law student, second time here, second year.
My name's Jordan, and I'm a third-year law student. This is my third year on GPSC, beginning my second year on graduate council, my second year on the fee allocation board, and I'm on the executive committee as well.
I'm also a law student, I forgot that.
My name is Xia. I'm from history department. This is my fourth year here. There is another representative from my department, but he's having class now, so he can't come.
I know that a few people will be arriving late today. I guess some classes get out right at 8, just so you know.
Cool.
My name is Steven. I'm a first-year doctoral student. This is my first time.
Great. What department are you in?
Rehab counseling.
Awesome.
I'm Kaylee. I'm a first year PhD, and I'm here for the theater department.
Kevin, second year PhD in Department of Philosophy.
My name is JP. I'm a PhD student in philosophy, and this is my first time GPSC.
Hi, I'm Danny. This is my first time here, and I'm representing the public health department, and I'm a first year master's student.
Hi, I'm Amelia. I'm a second year PhD student in philosophy. I served last year as a representative for my department. This year I'm serving as one of the ground council reps.
I'm Brian Lockett. This is my second year in the PhD program in health education. I used to hold the current with the public health department vote or whatever. Now I am the student trustee, the voting student trustee for the campus. Because of many of you in this room, thank you again. Yep.
I'm Donnie. I'm a fourth year PhD, and I am the comic relief.
But don't. Sorry.
I'm Alex Carpenter. I'm a third year and final semester of my master's for music, and this is my second year at GPSC.
Great. I'll do my formal introduction. So I'm Diana McGrean. I'm Vice President of Administrative Affairs. So I am the person, if you have questions for your department regarding event funding or travel funding, you can always come see me before or after any of these meetings, and I can kind of tell you how to process those and give you some advice. But I also do sit on several different subcommittees. I have sat on graduate council, but my primary role is I do also serve as the chair of the fee allocation board, which does look over those events, and I also do organize the research awards at the end of the year. So we give out 5 research awards at the end of the year, and that's something else that I do in the spring. So I've been on GPSC since my time here, so let's see, I've been on GPSC for 3 years, and 2 of those serving, I guess, is that, yeah, this will be my 4th year, so I'm about entering my 4th year, but 2 of those will be serving as vice president.
So like I said, I'm Clay Awesome. I'm a PhD student in sociology. I'm going into year 5. I've completed 4 years here. I've spent 3 years in GPSC, started as our council rep from sociology, served on the executive board, was last year the vice president for Graduate School Affairs, now this year president. And for the most part, I guess really that's it. I've done some other things within GPSC, I guess the committee stuff, but rather than rehash all of that, I suppose, we'll keep moving forward. So we are technically down a 3rd executive officer. As you can see on the back side of the agenda that I believe all of you have, it is in the bottom left. We do have 3 executive officers for the Graduate and Professional Student Council, President myself, Vice President of Administrative Affairs, Diana, and then Vice President for Student Affairs or Graduate School Affairs or Graduate Student Affairs. We have a weird thing with naming conventions sometimes. Is currently vacant. And then as far as governance is concerned, every single program from our graduate and professional programs is capable of electing, appointing, or sending a representative to this council itself in order to participate in all of the affairs. For every program with 50 additional, basically 50 or more students enrolled in those programs, they can send additional representatives. So as we're going around there, if you're hearing that there are multiple persons from a particular program, that's essentially the answer there. Except for programs that have more than those 50 students, you're able to start sending persons from that program in addition. We also have any number of at-large seats, and as we go through some more of the aspects of Graduate and Professional Student Council, all the places of the university's affairs that we are involved, you also get participation and representation in the council for various things like graduate council representatives that represent us within graduate council, as well as committee appointments. And so we kind of draw from all over the campus in a number of different ways. And so, having gone through that, I thought we'd spend a little bit of time talking about what GPSC does in the sense of various programs or action. For those of you that are familiar, which many of us are, for the Graduate and Professional Student Council, this will be reviewed. But also on that back page, you can see I've added in this 2-sheet of a little promo that we have for the organization in the sense of what GPSC is, what we can do, some information about representation, representatives within the council, and then we have some overview of 3 of the key areas that we develop programming. We distribute student fee funds. And so, like I was saying, in general, we are a student council body representing graduate and professional students from each academic unit, like I said. And in this body, as well as our various committees, within our participation in various committees across the campus, we essentially are able to carve out and take the position on the behalf of graduate and professional students. Those we represent, what we see is in their best interest, where we would like the university to take things in the affairs of either our degree programs themselves, the administration of the university, essentially how well are we actually supporting graduate and professional students itself, or any number of things that we see in the best interest of those students that we represent and the university that is realistically to be providing us with support, academic opportunities, the training, the professionalization that all of us here essentially come for, as well as paying for in any regard. So, like it says in this description, that can be things like fee increases, different grievance procedures, campus safety, anything of relevance to graduate and professional students. And so, your executive officers, myself, Diana, and to be elected 3rd executive, can take that and use that in all of the executive aspects of where we represent graduate and professional students, whether that's at the constituency heads meetings with the chancellor's office, whether that's at the board of trustees, or whether that's in one of the committees that we represent graduate and professional students. We can also take that before graduate council, where the actual policies that govern our degree programs are legislated by faculty as well as ourselves. And we'll talk a little bit about graduate council. We have essentially 5 representatives from graduate and professional students within that body, including our vice president for the Graduate School Affairs. But more or less, what it comes down to is we're all at this crazy thing that is the university. And through this collective body, we can take positions and we can take action with the bureaucratic resources that we have as a governing body and the authority that we have there written in as an actually recognized constituency body by the Board of Trustees. We can also then go and participate in the committee affairs that govern and administrate the entire university. We can add our perspective as graduate and professional students into that work to actually hopefully align it with what is going to work in the best interest of graduate and professional students, or any best interest as we see fit, in the sense of what is the best practice that should be pursued here. What is in the best interest of students and the longevity of the university, the health of the university? And it's also an opportunity for us to pursue things that we're passionate about. If there's a particular thing that you think is a good idea to try and start building as a part of the university experience, as a part of a curriculum within a university, as a part of a programming that should be there to support students, whether they're a student or not at this university. It can even have something to do within the community writ large, the persons that work here, the persons that the university has an interaction with. We can use this council, the other bodies that we have an engagement with, and our authority as a constituency body at this university to try to pursue those kinds of ends. Now, more specific, one of the things that we do for graduate and professional students is the idea of distributing student activity fee monies. So one of the things that really gives Graduate and Professional Student Council some stake is that we receive a portion of the student activity fees that we all pay into, and then we take that student activity fee money, and through our collective action and decision making, we define ways to essentially redistribute that back to graduate and professional students. We do that through 3 key mechanisms, which are on that back of the agenda, through our Career Development Reimbursement Award.
Stop you right there. Did anybody, I know that a few people did not have appropriately printed backs. Is there anybody else that needs a different copy of the agenda? Everybody's good? All right, just want to make sure.
Yeah, we got some extra copies as well. But we got the Career Development Reimbursement Award. We support student organizations, registered student organizations with various event funding, programming funding, and then we also have GPSC research awards. So essentially career development, you got the short synopsis there. In our activities of professional development, going to a conference, going to a workshop, going to some kind of meeting, you can apply for travel reimbursement through our Career Development Reimbursement Program. We have a form for it. You can qualify for up to $150 annually. Next is the student organization event funding. Essentially, we have any number of RSOs on campus. Those RSOs throw events. You can submit a petition to receive funding from GPSC. Our fee allocation board takes a look at those proposals. They process those proposals, make a recommendation, and then before the council will actually process those recommendations and make a final determination on the level of funding for those events. And then again, this is coming from those student activity fees that we are then allocated as a part of the budget and then redistributing that back to graduate and professional students. The last being the Graduate and Professional Student Council Research Awards. We've been in the practice of every year having a competition for recognition of research projects and awarding those research projects with essentially a stipend or a scholarship to support that research. And the exact policy sort of changes from time to time. I think we changed it once maybe in the dollar amount and the number of awards provided, right?
Yes, when we first did it, so when it first occurred under Willie, I know many of you know Willie, what we did is we had really small amounts. So you would get a research award, but it would be like $50 or it would be $100. So to make this feel much more like an award, under Willie's guidance, he said, why don't we celebrate these students more, give them something larger that can benefit their future research. And so it has adjusted during my time with GPSC, but has been in its format for a while.
All right. So I'm going to keep plowing through this overview. I know probably for a number of you this is sort of known information. And I apologize for its redundancy. So committee representation, also on the backside of your agenda or potentially in an addendum sheet since it's not on the backside. We have representation on any number of committees across the entirety of the university. Now these listed here are specifically university committees, committees that are convened by some organizational unit across the university, whether that's a chancellor's committee or whether that's a committee of a particular department or unit within the campus. We also have some additional graduate and professional student council specific committees, but these are those that are a part of the university governance writ large. And so we have a number, as you can see, of committees that we get representation on. It gives us a means through which graduate and professional students can participate in the administration and the governance and the actual oversight of our university itself. And as far as committee representation goes, more or less, if there's something there that you find interesting, or you would like to participate in, or you just think it's an interesting opportunity, that is something essentially you come and you ask to be a part of. And so we'll sort of start taking nominations or volunteering for these different committees at the end of this meeting today. So if there's anything on that list that you are interested in representing, graduate professional students, graduate professional council, student council is a part of on that list, you can go ahead and let us know. And there will be some additional opportunities from those themselves for specific graduate and professional student council things. But I think that wraps it up for more or less committee representation. Got that giant schedule. In addition to the committee representation of the university-wide committees, we also then have participation in graduate council. Have you never heard of graduate council? Graduate council is the faculty governance structure of the graduate programs for the university. There's a parallel governance structure of faculty senate that mostly handles the undergraduate programs, but specific to the graduate school, the programs under the graduate school, graduate council is that faculty legislative body that manages the affairs of all of our graduate degree programs, less the law school. Law school, you guys do it in-house, basically. And so in graduate council, we're actually afforded 5 seats of representation within that council of faculty. And so as a part of that, we have our vice president for graduate school affairs, which is our executive representative. That executive officer of GPSC gets to participate in the executive committee of graduate council itself, and then also the general council of graduate council. And then we have 4 additional reps elected to graduate council in addition to that vice president position. Those that we have this year, I'm going to point you out here. We have Derek McDowell from law. We have Jordan Maddox from law. We have Amelia Russo from philosophy. And we have Rachel Steiger from zoology, right? Sweet. And those are our grad council reps at current. We'll have another grad council rep elected, whether that is in the capacity of vice president or as an alternate to graduate council. It's something we'll cover at the end of this meeting. As a part of graduate council, each one of those reps, including the VP, is assigned to a committee within graduate council itself. All right, so we're almost through this orientation stuff. I'm sure this is probably incredibly dry, and I apologize if it is. Constituency group and university governance. So as president, the executive officer of this body, I have an interesting gig insofar that I chair this council. Realistically, this is you all's council. I chair this meeting for you to keep it orderly, to move business along, and to do so in an effective way. But ultimately, as representatives to this general council, it is your council that I chair and direct with the assistance of an executive board that is appointed and approved by this council. Now, in addition to chairing this council, this body for graduate and professional students and their duly elected representatives, I chair an executive board, which I appoint through nomination and is approved by this council, who then helps me manage the executive management and governance affairs of the council. I'll speak a little bit more about that executive board. We have that currently appointed with, I don't have the number, I believe it's 7, including myself, I think, yeah. The third aspect of what I do as the president, as an executive officer for this council and for students, is I function as a constituency representative. Graduate and Professional Student Council is officially recognized as a constituency group on this university. With that, I attend other constituency heads' roles, whether that is the constituency head meeting within the university with other things like the Civil Service Council for civil service employees, the APA Council that has its own representative. Basically, every formally recognized constituency head group gets a representative that represents the entirety of that population. I also function in that capacity with the guidance of this council and the executive board. That includes also going to the Board of Trustees to present our constituency's perspective directly to the Board of Trustees. All right. So future meetings. Doing pretty good on time. Real brief for future meetings. I have bolded on your agendas basically the key aspects of what will be included on every agenda. You have a call to order, some kind of potential welcome or introduction or salutation from the executive, an item for adopting the agenda so that we can actually structure our meetings that way, a reading and approval of the previous meeting's minutes, and then going to officer reports, committee reports, any old business from a previous meeting to be finally sort of handled with, determined, closed. Section for new business. The good of the order is essentially an open floor for recognition, discussion, announcements, and then ultimately adjourning the meeting. So those bolded items on the agenda that you have for this evening, those are going to form the core structure of every meeting that we have unless something changes. As a part of future meetings, we do follow Robert's rules. On the executive board, we had a brief discussion of it. I believe in our next meeting, which will be, I believe it's September 18th, we'll do a brief overview in the sense of how Robert's rules works and how we can employ that to be effective in getting everything that you all want to get done in the course of these meetings done as effectively and efficiently as possible. But as we've already gone on for about 30 minutes, we didn't want to have any more dry sort of things than we need with everything that I just went through about the structure. So we'll have a little bit of overview of how Robert's rules works, how we can structure through a meeting, how you can do things in the sense of advancing a particular point you want. But we'll do that in the next meeting. There's been a little bit of discussion that potentially, Derek, you might handle that for us, give us a short presentation as far as the way that we can move through these meetings. So, as I was writing this up, I knew that I was going to have to talk a lot. This is brutal. All right.
Can I just want to also say that I'm just going to jump in and let you breathe a little bit. So in consideration, why we're doing that is because we had very long meetings last year, and we had a lot of reps that kind of complained because we had a lot of issues on the floor. And there might be nights where we have a lot to talk about, and this will allow us to do so in an organized way so that we get you out in a timely manner. No one wants to be here till 10:30 in a 3-hour meeting. Right? So we will be creating cheat sheets for you, and we hope that our meetings can go a little bit faster, a little smoother this year. So just so you know, that's the goal, and I appreciate the time that you're taking to make sure everybody understands how that works. So I look forward to the cheat sheet and the presentation.
Yes, and I'll add to that. Thank you for reminding me of a number of things with that. This is sort of a discussion, and for the sake of keeping on our agenda, anything that you have in the sense of veterans here that want to bring up a point about how we might be able to move through business as efficiently and effectively as possible, please do bring that up during the go to the order section. Any of the new members that have an idea or a thought or a question about that, do please bring that up during our last part of the agenda there, that go to the order. Use the agenda here to write down a brief message. Also, a piece that I forgot about with future meetings, we have this space reserved right now from 6 to 9 p.m., including the lounge next door. And so something that is an available opportunity to us is to, prior to actual business meetings, organizing things in that lounge and or also in here, and that's something that I am curious about doing. And so some of our future meetings, it wouldn't necessarily be the business meeting in the sense of what is written on this agenda, but it could be something organized by the Graduate and Professional Student Council. We have a speaker come in, we have persons do a presentation, or we just hang out, whatever it is. That was something that I was kind of interested in doing. This space actually lends itself very well to that, particularly with the lounge out there. And so as we get going, committees get doing things, we have any number of different things that you all would like to see this council do. We have this space, and we might be able to employ it for those types of programs. And so I wanted to bring that up. I'd forgotten that point, and I think that's pretty cool.
Yes, and we also might adopt this to where it's also in consideration with the law school students. We understand that not all issues that will be presented to us will affect you. So when we are talking to different people like GAU or whatever it might be, if that's the case, then we can also put those agenda items early, so that way you can come in a time frame and not have to sit here where we could do it, or we could do it in the foyer. Doing good. Doing a good job.
Trying. Future meetings are going to be in here with the exception of 2. Unless we want to change it, this room is very different from the rooms that we've used in the past. And we're trying it out. In the future, we also are going to try to arrange to have a screen with a projector so that we can actually have items that are coming up in the course of business on that projector. I'm also trying to find a way to arrange for a podium. I have the idea of those that have the agenda item and the floor and are leading that agenda item to actually address the council from that podium itself, but it's prohibitively expensive to rent one from the university, and so I'm trying to figure something else out. But at very least, we will have a projector, and also for meeting minutes, there's the notion of potentially live streaming them. To handle the data management and stuff, but right now that's up in the air because I haven't had the time to figure out the IT for that. But data management for recorded minutes, because we don't have an actual secretary to go through and transcribe things, it's very time consuming. The data management of handling the recordings ourselves is also prohibitively time consuming and expensive, taking into account the cost of that time. So working on other things, which might be live streaming the video for the meetings. But I'm running out of time on these agendas.
Actually, before we move forward, does anybody have any questions? That's a lot of information that happened. Does anybody have any questions, especially if you're new? Any questions before we move forward? I would also like to thank everyone once again for coming, and also just let you know a little bit about our own habits. This is a very relaxed environment. Come dressed as you want. You could do homework while you're here. You're not going to offend anyone. It's understood we're students, as well as giving our time to service. So you're notice a lot of people have their computers open. So if you're coming, don't feel that you have to just stare at us the whole time. If you need to take care of yourself while you're here, if that makes sense. And eat pizza and eat pizza.
Yeah, food. We're going to try our best to keep food in the meetings as well. Still brainstorming that, still figuring it out. Executive board will help us figure that out. Yeah, that was good. Those are all things that I just constantly.
So that's why we're here. We're a team.
It's good.
Balance.
Yeah.
It's the yin and the yang.
Yeah, it's very good. All right, so there was no questions there. I'll keep moving and have to keep talking. Holy cow. He didn't warn me about the talking. This is a lot. I'm going to be very happy for when we get to a different part of business and I just get to manage the affairs. Holy cow. All right, we're doing pretty decent on time here. So, report from the GPSC president here. I do have a great deal to report. I'm going to try to do this as expediently as possible. If you have questions, holler. But goodness. So, summary report over the summer here. I'm going to start with some things that came before the Board of Trustees and the SIU system generally. So May 30th, Board of Trustees. I spoke at the Board of Trustees. I communicated that President Dunn demonstrated poor judgment when he endorsed SIUE, engaging in a comparative evaluation and determination as to the appropriate level of funding for SIUC. June 21st, Board of Trustees. There was an authorization to pursue campus funding allocation study and engage with a consultant. If you're unfamiliar with everything that has been going on at the Board of Trustees and the SIU system level over allocation funding, that is something that we can follow up on. That is essentially what is going on there in those two first items related to the Board of Trustees. More than happy to go into some depth of explaining that, show you some reports and things that we have from the previous year. Suffice this to say, I will leave those items on this report to that pending question. July 16th, Board of Trustees. President Dunn agreed to a separation with the Board of Trustees, thereby leaving his position as the president of the SIU system, and interim President Dorsey was appointed and took over as the system president. Dr. Dorsey is the former dean and provost of the SIU School of Medicine. and has been named the interim president for a one-year term while the board launches a search for a full-time new president. In late July, the Board of Trustees, SIUC student trustee Breon Lockett, who is still with us, was provided the status of a voting member on that Board of Trustees. We have 2 student trustees who are elected to the SIU System Board of Trustees. They manage the overall affairs of the entire university system, which includes a number of campuses: Carbondale, Edwardsville, the dental school, the law school, which has a relationship with Carbondale, as well as the medical school, which also has a relationship with Carbondale, and then is also located in Springfield. And I'm sure I'm forgetting some other aspects. It's a very large system. But 2 student trustees, one from Edwardsville, one from Carbondale. Our student trustee, Breon Lockett, was provided that voting member status of the board. August 20th, the Illinois House Higher Education Committee hearing at SIUC. I provided testimony addressing the acuteness of the enrollment declines at SIUC and communicated my concerns for the future and well-being of doctoral and master's education at this university, and I encouraged the consideration of SIUC's need for stability and predictability that allows us to develop and implement long-term strategic plans supported with commensurate investment and commitment to our mission, and to see these strategic plans fulfilled with steadfast and effective implementation. September 12th, we have a Board of Trustees meeting coming up that is just about a week away. I will be presenting an introduction to and some findings from GPSC's Graduate and Professional Student Survey that we concluded the collection of data last year. I'll be presenting that to the board in their work session on that Thursday. So I should have that presentation here wrapped up and finalized in a few days, and I will be gone doing that next week before the Board of Trustees. Also, I just submitted on Saturday an application to the SIU Alumni Association. They have a funding opportunity that supports in recruitment and retention of students. I submitted an application on our behalf to the Alumni Association requesting $15,000 to support our career development reimbursement funds. And we should know the outcome of that by September 19th.
Yay! The monies! Give us the monies! I'm excited. I think we have a really good shot.
I was very excited all weekend, yeah. It was a very long Saturday to complete that, but I'm really excited. If you're interested in really any of these statements or reports or summary of events or contents of said application, always you can ask a question. These things are kept as far as our records, and they can be provided on request until potentially figure out something better for the access to those kinds of records. So moving on to campus affairs. So SIUC affairs, May 22nd. So our Vice President for Graduate School Affairs or Graduate Student Affairs or Graduate School Affairs, I don't know, however you want to say it, Lauren Schaefer offered her resignation from GPSC Office of Vice President of Graduate School Affairs. I informed the Graduate Council, the Associate Dean and Director of the Graduate School, and the Office of Student Engagement May 29th of that resignation. July 18th, I received formal approval from the Chair of Graduate Council to act as an interim Vice President of Graduate School Affairs and Graduate Council Affairs. I have since fulfilled that role on the Executive Committee of Graduate Council last week or 2 weeks ago. And I will be there at the Grad Council meeting, their first General Council meeting on Thursday, along with our Graduate Council reps. July 1st, the undergraduate student government moved into the office suite along with our student trustees. So now the undergraduate student government, graduate and professional student council, and the Carbondale student trustee all share the same office, which is up on the 3rd floor if you're unfamiliar. So we're all in that same office. There's a kind of a lot of activity going on in the sense of how we're going to reorganize that office. Before it was basically just our space, but now that front office space, we're having to negotiate and figure out how we're going to share that main entry sort of lobby receiving administration area, the computers, the infrastructure, the office costs, the office worker salary, all kinds of fun stuff that we get to figure out. July 10th, Faculty Senate met. The Faculty Senate approved RMEs in July for 6 schools: the Applied Engineering and Technology, biological sciences, computing, earth systems and sustainability, health sciences, psychology, and behavioral sciences. The Faculty Senate on July 10th also voted no confidence in President Dunn, which then, as I mentioned earlier, was followed up with the separation agreement between Dunn and the Board of Trustees July 16th. August 23rd, Graduate Council Executive Committee met. There are a number of changes, it sounds like, coming to the Student Center. There was a makerspace that was under discussion to be put in the basement of the Student Services Building, which is across the way from the Student Center Building. What are we in?
We're in the Student Center.
Yeah, we're in the Student Center.
So Student Center, this is where you have your food, your fun activities, student services, financial aid.
Yeah.
All those good things.
So actually, change of plans, and instead of in the basement there, it's being moved to the basement here in the Student Center, as well as potentially a little bit of the space that is to the south, above that part of the basement. They're actually, I found that out this summer trying to find places to hide. There used to be a tavern in the basement of the Student Center, which was an excellent place to hide, but is now going to be turned into a makerspace, and I will have to find another location. Also, there is going to be an esports suite coming to the Student Center in the old Dell store, and it seems as though it's probably going to also occupy part of what is now the billiards area. So over there by the Sustainability Center or Institute, on the other end of the Student Center, there's going to be an esports thing coming in. So there's going to be a number of changes. There was also the parking, remote parking office added on the first floor of the Student Center, and a little bit of change outside the Student Center with some temporary parking that was added over the summer for 30-minute parking at a time. Perhaps more important things from Graduate Council Executive, there's some backlog of paperwork within the grad school shop. This relates to things like processing of tax forms and some other HR aspects. It's holding up the approval of some GA contracts. They are working on it. It is essentially a staffing and software issue. They switched to a new piece of software. The software does not quite work very well, and then it ends up being incredibly time-consuming to go through the series of actions that you need to go through in order to execute the changes to those contracts and get the person put on HR's payroll, and there are just not enough persons to do what is entirely a ton of labor to do those processing of the applications through the software or the paperwork through the software. So there is a little bit of a backlog. They're doing the best that they can on it. The software is making it very difficult, and there's just not the persons to sit there and dedicate the time to what it takes for the software to actually do what it needs to do. Also, the health center fee waiver that is a part of every GA contract, it is not being processed on your student account currently. When we went to the consolidated student fees, where now instead of it being a whole schedule of a bunch of fees on your student account and it's just the one, as a part of any GA contract, whether it's administrative, whether it's teaching, whether it's research, you are waived half the student health center fee as a part of that GA contract. That's not the insurance fee. It's the student center, the student health center fee. And I think it comes in the order of about $109 credit, $108 credit. But that waiver is not on your accounts. At least last I was made aware, it's not on your accounts yet. If you have a GA contract, it is something that everyone is aware of, but the solution to actually go through and change that is sort of in the interim right now, as well as there's also the concerns about the final number of credit hours at which a student was enrolled to then receive the credit. So ultimately, what I have been instructed is that you will receive the credit. This is not something that persons are unaware of, but it is more a concern of getting you the accurate waiver amount, since ultimately that waiver amount is relative to the fees that you are billed at, which is associated with your credit hours, which might change over the course of the semester. So the waiver is something that should come onto your student account towards the end of the fall term. And I will keep you informed, or the Values President for Graduate School Affairs will keep you informed of that as we develop. Also, around August 23rd, here with Graduate Council Executive. Derek McDowell had been successfully elected as the Vice Chair of the Graduate Council, but has since offered his resignation as Vice Chair to the Graduate Council Chair, and that was accepted. And so Derek has now stepped down as Vice Chair of Graduate Council, but maintains his status as our representative on Graduate Council, as well as now member of Executive Board, clearing up some potential conflicts of interest there, I think, for the better. Yeah. All right, so August 24th, constituency heads meeting. The provost is now managing the reorganization in full. The interim provost has taken over those day-to-day activities. The chancellor is moving on to other things. There is a huge push to focus sort of on the ideas of the campus culture, the campus activity, the campus programming, looking at things like housing, dining, student center hours, the programming and activities that are provided as a part of the student experience for the campus writ large. Also, I can tell you that there was approval to hire 25 tenure-track faculty. It's in the process. The money is only there for those right now, and they have not all rolled out yet, but they will be soon. Ooh, running low on time here. An interesting thing from constituency heads that I will throw in here. There's a focus on 2025, the choice between UIC and SIUC. UIUC. So basically U of I and here at Carbondale, the idea of the choice of those, them being equal but different, and the idea of focusing on the individual, the connection with depth, experience, etc., being what distinguishes Carbondale from U of I there in Urbana-Champaign. As far as that report, I will cut it off there. I am out of time. I will keep myself to that time. I'm over time, in fact. And I didn't know if you, we did talk about this. Diana, I'll give you the opportunity to do a report and I'll shut up.
Thanks, Clay. I appreciate that. I would have so many questions about the 2025 thing and what that actually means. But moving on to my report, it's very different for me. Unlike Clay, his position is one that is employed over the summer. I am not, so I get to be short and sweet. But I will say that when coming up with a budget for this academic year, I do have to wait for Lori Leffler, who will take our 10-day count. And what that means is that our 10-day count happened on Friday. They won't be able to process those numbers of what our actual student fees are based on if anyone dropped or things like that. So by our next meeting, though, I'll have a much more detailed outline of our particular budget. Hopefully by that time, too, we'll know whether or not the Alumni Association will grant us that $15,000 to go towards our career development, which will allow us then to shift some focus to our event funding as well as our awards. So that will come your way. But in the meantime, as I said, I'm the person that can answer your questions about submitting requests or how do you fill out the forms, where can you find that online, etc. So if anyone in your department has any questions, they can also contact me. But also, both Clay and I will be also reaching out. And as he mentioned, we do have some wonderful committees. And that's one thing that we will help you connect with those different committees if you are interested. So do take time and look at that. That's something we both manage. All right. I see fee allocation boards later, so I'm just going to...
Oh, you want to wait on that?
I can knock it out now, or I can just go in order. Whatever you want. It's up to you.
We'll follow the order.
We're so close. We're so close to time now.
Yeah,
See, I did that just for you. Back on time.
Excellent. All right, so I'm back up. So GPSC Executive Board. Like I said, we have an Executive Board. They advise me and guide me on the executive management and oversight of the Graduate and Professional Student Council. Oh, goodness. I did have a sheet of paper with those that are on the e-board. But I am on the e-board. I chair the Executive Board. Both the other executive officers, the vice presidents, by default serve on that executive board. So Diana is on that executive board as well. And when we have a newly elected vice president for Graduate School Affairs, they will also serve on that executive board. I wanted to acknowledge those that have been appointed to the executive board in the course of this meeting. So those that are on the executive board, hopefully I don't screw this up. Derek McDowell is on the executive board. Jordan Maddox is also on the executive board, both being from the law school. Rachel Steiger is on the executive board from zoology. Oh man, I'm
Lindy
tired.
Wagner.
Yes, Lindy. Lindy Wagner from Communication Studies is on the executive board. Abdul Samad from Higher Ed and Curriculum, right? I had this on a sheet and I didn't bring it.
You're doing fine.
But Abdul Samad is on the executive board as well. I have invited as ex officio members of the executive board to help coordinate matters before all student government. Breon Lockett is an ex officio member to our executive board meetings when he can attend them. He has that open invite, as well as a representative from USG, Toussaint Mitchell, my parallel within the undergraduate student government. I have invited him or to send a representative on behalf of USG to help coordinate matters across undergrad student or all student government. We've also started organizing some joint meetings across the student government leadership. We had one last week that was pretty good. Some potential highlights of that executive board meeting. I'm going to leave it at that. Told myself to my time and hand it over for fee allocation.
I'm going to take that. I'm going to roll with it. So this year our executive committee is actually being asked to do even more, and so you'll see this kind of extension, and that's also kind of going back to our committee service. So what are you passionate about? So I'm going to use Rachel as an example. So as GPSC, we handle academic grievances. So if you need an ally in the room, if someone is filing an academic grievance, they do turn to us, and we help them through that process. But now we have people who could be true champions to those people who are in need, and making sure that that's articulated within our contracts, within online, so that it's not so confusing for students who have to process that. So definitely, spearheading that along. Gosh, I'm so sorry. I'm blanking out. Along with Derek. And to really hone in that language, because right now it is a little unclear on our SIU websites of that process for students. And so if there's something like that, for example, last year Lauren Schaefer, who was originally hired or elected into the VP position, she was really interested in mentorship on this campus. She said that it's something that lacked on this campus. So she started her own committee through GPSC and got mentors involved across campus, both in roles that as faculty members, as people who are staff members. And so if there's something that you're truly passionate about, look and see what it aligns, but if it's not on there, just let us know. And we can certainly create something that you can be in charge of, that you can lead, especially if it's something that is currently absent on this campus. So going in, primarily my duty is serving as the fee allocation board chair. And so I will be looking for for members on that. And so pretty much what we do is we meet right before this meeting. So this meeting starts at 7:30. Depending on who we are seeing that evening, we might meet at 6 or 6:30, and it would be right upstairs across from the GPSC offices. So for example, if someone is requesting funds for an event, what they would do is they would submit that to us. We would have that information in their request, and then they would sit down in front of our committee and let us know about their event. We would review their request, ask them further questions, and then make a suggestion amongst the committee that then is brought to the floor to be voted on. So if you're interested in doing that, let me know. Come see me afterwards. And like I said, it's just right before this meeting. So for some, that could be a convenience. I know for some, that's unfortunately you might have a class at the time. But also in the spring, what that board also does is they also help with the research award. So they review. I mean, last year we got nearly 100 applicants, and so dividing that into teams, reviewing that, and bringing our best candidates forward for discussion. And so if that's something you're also interested in, let me know. So that's all I have to say about that. Please just reach out to me afterwards if you have any further questions about anything, committees, being on the fee allocation board, or finding other opportunities to get more involved with GPSC.
And I will say, before we move on to new business, there being no old business, that, you know, I haven't been doing as good of a job emphasizing it as I wanted to, and you brought that to my attention. The idea that it's just, I said it earlier, the idea that this is you all's council, insofar that it's the general council for the representatives. And so I do really want to stress that, like you did, the idea that it's just like the notion that part of our job as executive is to find the ways to make this thing work for what it is that you want to accomplish with this council and with the authority that the Graduate and Professional Student Council across all those different areas can do. So what that thing is that you want to see change about the university, that you want to have the opportunity to do while you're here, that is entirely stuff that is the business of this council, and that I feel is the executive branch's job to try and find the ways to make that work, to find the ways that we can make it valuable experiences, that we can get the programming put in place, that we can change the things that we're trying to change or that we feel need to be addressed. It really is sort of your council to set the agenda for, to find the priorities, and that we're going to do what we can as an executive branch and with the assistance of the executive board to find the ways to make that work, to create those opportunities, to get that support, to make the changes, whatever it is. And so I think, I really want that point to be clear. And as we get going and we keep going further into the year, hopefully that comes to bear and what we can do as an executive branch and with the help of the executive board. So moving on to new business, there being no old business before the council, we do have to hold a special election for the Vice President of Graduate School Affairs. You can see different names all over the place. So for the special election, we are trying to hold ourselves as closely as possible to the Constitution and bylaws that govern the council and the organization as a whole. So one of those things is that it requires an election commission. We have proceeded with an election commission constituted by myself, Diana, and Derek. And for all intent and purpose, I will function as the commissioner of the election commission. As far as the process for that election, we are going to receive nominations, much like we do in the past, basically call for those nominations so long as someone agrees to either be nominated by a person other than themselves, or that person nominates themselves that can qualify in the sense of becoming a candidate for that election. All of the terms for the requirements of that office will also still be in place. And we will hold ourselves to the idea of having at least 2 meetings to qualify to vote. So the structure that we have developed is essentially this first meeting establishes the first meeting to qualify as someone that can vote in that election. And then the second meeting that we'll have 2 weeks from today will qualify as that second regularly scheduled meeting. And then right after we adjourn 2 weeks from now, essentially we will convene a special meeting of the council for the purposes of conducting a special election, and then begin with the actual campaign with the time that's allotted for speeches, and then actually collect the votes for that position. And if required, an alternate for graduate council rep, depending on the outcome of that election. And so then we'll actually have the campaign speeches for that, and then the voting and counting of the votes for it by the election commission.
Can I interrupt?
Yes.
So as he mentioned, the people in this room now, if you show up to the next meeting, you are the ones who get to vote, not the people who show up next week, because you have to come to 2 meetings. And so so that's why it's really important that you sign in. So I don't know where that sheet is. So if you did not sign in, make sure you sign in, because that way I take a tally and I know who's eligible to vote. So if you haven't signed that, that's why we asked you to do so, especially these early meetings. Yes. So please do that. And yeah, I just wanted to make sure that you know that by coming to the next meeting, the people in this room, are the ones who have that opportunity to vote.
Yes. And so your name must appear on the roll for this meeting, as well as the roll of the next meeting 2 weeks from now. I believe that's is it the 18th? Yeah, because BOT is like the 14th. I think that's right. Yeah, so the 18th. So your name has to appear on both those rolls. We'll look at that roll alongside the one for tonight 2 weeks from now to establish who can vote as a part of this special election. So a little bit about the Vice President of Graduate School Affairs. It is an executive office position within GPSC. It is a position that requires one to participate in the affairs of the Graduate Council along with our Graduate Council reps. Graduate Council is the faculty governance body for graduate programs on this campus. It meets on Thursday mornings once a month at 8 a.m. So anyone that were to run for the VP GSA or an alternate of a grad council rep, if we require that, will have to make the once a month Thursday meeting at 8 a.m. For the Vice President of the Graduate School Affairs, you also will meet an additional time at 8 a.m. on Thursdays for the Executive Committee meeting of Graduate Council. Both of these meetings take place in the Student Services Building, and they are Thursdays at 8 a.m. You have to be able to make both of those. You will also be assigned to a committee if a new person that is not currently a Graduate Council rep is elected as VP GSA. You will be assigned to the new Programs Committee, which I can tell you is going to be a lot of work within Graduate Council this year. If it be the case that a current Graduate Council representative is elected to the VP GSA spot, the alternate Grad Council rep to replace them as we rotate them in will be assigned to the new Programs Committee as GPSC's representative in Grad Council to that committee. And that committee will meet according to the schedule established by its chair. The VP GSA position essentially is sort of the de facto leader of our Graduate Council representatives. You coordinate everything that is going on before Graduate Council along with the Executive Board, which they are a member of, as well as in an Executive Officer of the Graduate Professional Student Council. That being said, obviously the individual elected to the VP GSA position will have to attend then the Executive Board meetings of GPSC, which are taking place either on Tuesdays or on Thursdays, yet to be determined on time. I just sent you all a crazy doodle poll, so we'll get it figured out. But there will be an additional meeting you have to go to. I was that position last year, and I can tell you, it is a shit ton of meetings. It is a ton of information, and it is something that you do have to be up on with your schedule. The VP GSA position does come with a 25% GA stipend paid through the graduate school. So if you get that position, there is the opportunity, and we would like you to take that opportunity to have that 25% stipend that is provided for a 9-month or 10-month term. It goes basically from the August to May, like most of our TA or RA or administrative assistants, paid through the graduate school itself. I think it's executed technically through the Office of Student Engagement. And let's see.
Can I add to that?
Yeah, am I forgetting something?
So if you are someone who's interested in running, this is also, as you receive these nominations, if you already have a 50% contract within your department, what you need to do is you need to go to your department chair and say, hey, I've been nominated for this, because then they have to, if you were to receive that, they have to decide whether or not they want you to take it, because they have to grant you the opportunity to have the 75% total. So that's something that they would actually have to write a letter to the graduate school requesting that. That would then be reviewed by the graduate school, and then it would then be processed forward. But they have the right to refuse, if that makes sense. So your department can say, no, we're not going to grant this, we're not going to let you move forward, because they determine whether or not you are on the path of graduation. And will this deter you? Will this get in your way of your academics? So that's something to keep in mind. So, you know, if you are nominated, go to your department. If for any reason they have hesitation, let us know, and that way we could take you off the ballot on September 18th. But just know, it is a very, I think Clay undersells it in a sense of the responsibility and the weight of that position, and who you really get a chance to be in front of and talk to on behalf of graduate students. You will have personal conversations, sit in a room with the chancellor, with our provost, with people who make large decisions on this campus. and be that person who's an advocate for graduate students, and that can also push back when needed against administration.
Yeah.
When needed, I should emphasize.
I'm only been in this job, I guess, like 4 or 5 months now, which is kind of crazy to think about. But it's pretty similar to my gig, but less all the crazy bureaucratic stuff, which is honestly nicer.
All right, so
Spend a day trying to do web
nomination
troubleshooting.
time.
Yeah, so it's pretty great. You don't have to deal with office negotiations. Yeah, we'll open it up for a nomination of candidates, Vice President of Graduate School Affairs.
I should also note that if someone is on fellowship, unfortunately, because you are unable to hold any other jobs on campus or any other forms of employment, you unfortunately are not available to be nominated. I'm sorry, because you're such wonderful and strong people, but unfortunately, you wouldn't be eligible. Yes.
I nominate Jordan Maddox.
Oh yeah, you have nominations occurring. Do you accept? Awesome. I nominate Abdul Samad. Do you accept?
Upset.
Accept?
Not upset, but accept.
I'm going to nominate Lindy Wagner.
I accept the nomination.
Awesome. I can hear the confidence in your voice. Yes.
I would also like to nominate Alex Davenport.
All right.
Yep, I accept.
Okay. Do you say you accept nomination? Are there any other nominations from the floor at this time? You also can nominate yourself.
Point of information. Are we able to nominate next meeting as well?
Yes, absolutely.
You can nominate next meeting as well.
That will likely be under old business and our next meeting's agenda. And so we will open up the opportunity for nominations September 18th. And then those nominations at the close of that meeting 2 weeks from now will stand as those that are awarded the time to speak during the campaign, which I believe is 5 minutes for this vice president's position. Yes.
Yes. Yes. So if you are nominated, just remember that at the end of our meeting, we will adjourn to have a special election meeting, and it'll give you an opportunity, 5 minutes of time. Use it wisely, especially since many people are new to GPSC, and this would be their first opportunity to understand what you've done on this campus as a student, as a previous employee, as an advocate, as whatever you want to label yourself, but make sure that they know who you are. Because we have Jordan within the nominations, I do move that we also nominate at this time someone who potentially could take the graduate council position if you were to be elected into VP, if that makes sense. Okay. This may or may not, depending on who is elected. This is more of a tentative type of thing, but we would rather just get these nominations out now so we can procedurally have the chance to both nominate tonight and on September 18th. So this would be as a representative on graduate council. Once again, you have to be able to meet on Thursday mornings at 8 o'clock, and this is just once a month, the first Thursday of the month. Usually meetings will last about 3 hours, 2 to 3 hours, 2 to 3 hours, depending on what is on the agenda. But you will have the opportunity through that to also serve on other subcommittees that do very great things on campus, like new programs. They'll review any new programs that are being suggested, and other things like that. I'm trying to think of what else.
In the event that we require to vote in a alternate grad council rep, that person would be getting assigned to new programs. Because that would only occur in the event that Jordan is successfully elected as VP Graduate School Affairs. And so you would retain your current committee assignment, and the rotating and alternate grad council rep would take over new programs.
And so that actually would be a very busy position as we are doing the reconstruction. People will have to probably reprogram, or that gives them the opportunity to totally redesign. And so, for example, I think I was actually on this committee if I recall. And so let's say someone's adding a master's program that they didn't have before. They will bring that forward to this committee, and that committee will decide whether or not they have enough faculty and can uphold what they're desiring to obtain through a master's program. So you do things like that. Sometimes programs are actually denied because they have wonderful dreams, but not the realistic ability. So that would be what you do on new programs. All right, so elections from the floor, nominations from the floor, for graduate council representatives.
Can I nominate myself?
Yes, you can. Oh, what was the name again?
Dani, D-A-N-I.
Last name?
Koskay, Lizzie Victor. A-T-C-O-S-K-A-Y.
All right. Let's see. Ooh, I don't know if this person will wake up at 8 o'clock in the morning, but I nominate Donnie. Yeah? You accept it?
And you can nominate yourself for 2 different positions, or you may be nominated for 2 different positions. If you've nominated yourself up for a candidate of the VP GSA position, you can nominate yourself for grad council rep in that alternate spot as well. That is something that can be done.
Nominate Lindy.
All right. Lindy, do you accept?
I do.
All right.
Derek, I see your...
Oh, I nominate our own Parking Appeals Board, Cal Childress.
All right. Any other nominations from the floor at this time? You're also more than welcome to nominate yourself.
And again, we will accept nominations for this potential alternate grad council rep at the next meeting as well.
Yes, so if you have to ask more questions, or if you don't know if you'd be eligible until you talk to your department, totally understand. Is that all we have at this time? Any other nominations?
I nominate Caleb.
Awesome. Caleb?
I decline. I teach during those meetings.
Gotcha.
But thank you. I appreciate that.
All right.
There being no further nominations, move on to the next agenda item.
Actually, I would like to nominate Emily.
Okay.
All
Just
right.
being
Okay.
grad council alternate, is that correct, or which one?
Yeah, that's alternate.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
All right. Last item under new business is nomination of committee persons for standing committees. Essentially, these university-wide committees that you have on the back of the agenda for today. I didn't know if you were, I can't even remember, for fee allocation board, if you need members for that yet?
Yes, yes, I will need members because unfortunately I have a lot of great previous members who won't be able to serve because of conflicts of class time. Otherwise, but they're my champions. Maybe next semester. But yeah, if you're interested in that, it is pretty. I like to call it because you notice that it's the FAB, and so I like to call it the Fabulous Committee. Something I like to put together. So
we aren't constituting. Oh, that was the other thing. We aren't constituting it yet because it is chaired by the Vice President of Graduate School Affairs. But we do have a Diversity and Inclusivity Policy Committee that persons can volunteer for as well. But that won't take shape until we have Vice President for GSA elected.
As you consider this, because this isn't something that necessarily needs to be nominated.
Yep. Yeah, you can just nominate, volunteer.
Yeah, because I mean, more than one person can serve on many of these. There's only a few where they only will allow one person in the room, and we can let you know what those are, because they are a little bit more strict because of how much power they have in their votings. So, for example, last year, and I would actually love to serve on it again, but I would welcome the opportunity to anyone else, is I served on the athletic advisory board. So I actually would be in the room and we'd be looking at our intercollegiate athletic advisory committee. And so that was actually big votes, so if there was a big topic of Title IX issues or things like that, we would have very large discussions on procedures and what needs to happen. If there was complaints or grievances from particular athletes, or we would look at those. And so there were also other faculty members, members of our athletic department in the room, and even some budget and monetary things were discussed. So they only allow one representative because of the impact of that vote.
However, if it pleases the council, I might suggest we move to the second to last agenda item for these volunteering of committee positions. This is something you can just come up to us or send us an email, and we can get you set up on those that you're interested in. Might be something you also have additional questions for prior to wanting to volunteer. It's not necessarily something we have to use a formal floor for. And so long as there are no objections, we can move to that second to last agenda item. Good of the order. We're coming up right on 9 o'clock. All right, so we'll go ahead and move here to the good of the order. Essentially, this is just an open floor. Anybody has any questions or discussions or announcements?
I've got announcements.
Yeah.
Yeah. I am helping to organize a team. I would like to have a graduate and professional student team run through GPSC and GAU. But there is an event coming up. It's For Kids' Sake Superhero 5K, which is happening in October. And so October 6th. And what this does is every entry for this race will feed a child, an orphan in India, for a month. So 30 days filled with food for just running one race. So if you're interested in running, it's pretty fun. I did it last year. Everybody dresses up as, you guessed it, some sort of superhero, wearing capes, tutus, and whatnots, whatever your superpower might be. And if you can walk it, you can run it, and it gives you an opportunity to really have direct support. And I know that there's other things you could do. You can also, I know that another thing that we would do is we would also have a page, so if you're not an athletic person, if you just can't make it that day, you can also still donate. And so I'll be creating a web page that will have that information, and I'll also have that login information. But if you're interested, just include your name and contact information so I can let you know that team code password as soon as I know who's interested. So that'll be here. If you want to feed children, orphans in India. Yeah? Okay.
Yes.
I would like to introduce a motion to discuss a potential amendment to the GPSC Constitution. Currently, our Constitution reads that unit voting members of the GPSC shall be restricted as members who are duly elected or appointed as representatives by the students from an academic department, school, or college. And it's somewhat a bit ambiguously worded, that it could be leaving out graduate programs that may not necessarily be considered a department. And so I would like to propose that we amend that language to include department, school, college, or graduate program.
Motion on the floor. Motion seconded. Is discussion on this?
Yeah, sounds good to me. That's just a couple words. I'm all right with that.
Insofar that this would constitute a constitutional change, this is something that we would have to have a couple hearings on. I believe this is something that best serves the council, that we actually have the formal language codified so that we can do a side-by-side. So if it would please the council, I would move this matter with a successful motion to the affairs of the executive board, so that we can formally produce an amendment reflecting the language suggested by the member, and present that for formal reading to the council. Seconded? Yeah. All in favor of moving that matter to the executive board for movement to the council? All right. We will have that for the next council meeting on September 18th. Any additional business? Anything at all? Any questions, discussion? Yeah, Jordan. I'll come to Jordan first and then come to you.
So if any of you have events like 5K or anything like that, you can forward it to me and I can get it on the WSIU Almanac. not a whole lot of students listen to it really, not in undergrad at least, but a lot of the community does. So if it's an event that you're really wanting to get out there and you don't have money, but you want to get the word out, I can easily get that up for you. You can do it yourself, or you can just email it to me. Also, if any of you have had trouble getting financial aid this semester, I would be interested in hearing about that. So if you could send me an email or talk to me after the meeting, that would be great. And my email is just my name, Jordan.Maddox@siu.edu.
You had?
Sorry, before we go to...
Yeah.
Yeah, I just had a quick question. On the GPSC site, it said that the applications for the travel assistance...
Oh, that's for last year. Sorry.
Okay, so it's not posted.
So yeah, you can submit those. Though that would be changed tomorrow. I looked at that. I was like, oh, darn it, I didn't date that yet. But yeah, I'm already receiving applications. So the sooner the better, because we receive a limited amount of funds. So if you know that there's something coming up, just get it in. And I apologize. That was because we ran out of funds in April, and so that's what that demonstrates. Is that 2018
And
spring.
I will say, the website right now, it's pretty rough. Apologize. Some of the crazy bureaucratic stuff I'm trying to work with, because technically the app link I found out on Saturday is broken when I was doing the app for the researcher stuff, because the Dropbox link is now broken. Just stuff. It's just like I'm not getting so much administrative nonsense.
That's all right.
Yeah. So the website is getting there. We also have another website that we need to do for Office of Student Engagement, where we're going to be able to, I think, build out a calendar, which was something that came up at Old Business, and will be linked through some app. It's some cool stuff. I'm working on it. There's a lot of things that are sort of moving and flowing as far as bureaucratic, office-driven things.
I'm going to answer what I think you're going to ask, and that's how do you submit that, or where do you get the form for travel funding?
That's not what I was going to ask, but that's important.
Sure, it's good information though. So you can use the current form that's up there. Some of the language might change, but it won't affect things. And you can either, if you can send that in a PDF form, you can either email it to us at GPSC GPSC@siu.edu, or you can also just drop it up at our office, which is on the 3rd floor. You'll see a wooden box and it has my name on it, and that's where you put that. What was your other question?
I was wondering if you're collecting applications for the semester right now or for the year?
It's if you've already, so this is the way I look at it. Have you actually, so if you meet the qualifications on that, have you actually registered for this conference? Have you been accepted to the conference? So if you're asking, if you want to receive the 150 as a presenter, you should be able to have that information. Have you already booked your hotel room? Do you have these other receipts and things like that? If it's just something that you might go to, but you haven't shown the registration, then you would need to process that first, just to show that you've invested and that you are committed to this particular conference or workshop or whatever you're attending. But you can do it for I'll do it as early as possible. So if you have something that you know you're going to and that you registered for, you can go ahead and, I know some people do that very early, depending on what the conference is.
Yeah, one of the ways I express that is if you are registered and you've incurred a cost to attend.
Yes, if you've incurred a cost to attend.
Submit.
Yes, if you've registered and incurred a cost to attend. And it's pretty obvious, even if sometimes I know people might travel together, but traveling does cost. So if it's something that's in LA, you're going to spend money in LA. I know that. And so, so if you've already are noted that, okay, I'm booked here, I haven't figured out the hotel room yet, but I'm trying to figure out this as well. Yeah, just let me know.
And that is different from the university's policy, where it's something that you do after you return, but ours is a different process. And so yeah. Brian, you had?
Click, could you explain more information of what me as an ex officio vote or ex officio member to GPSC to the
Yeah. Well, Brian, prior to being elected Carbondale student trustee, did serve in Graduate and Professional Student Council, so he has the perspective of being a representative within this council. He is a current graduate student here at Carbondale, and then he also has the perspective of acting as a representative and an advocate for graduate professional students, as well as undergraduate students, all students, for this university. And so I invited him to participate as he sees fit when he can make it as an ex officio member to just keep up to date with what's going on in our council, because it won't be every council meeting that he can make for the general council, but if he can come to an executive and hear a summary of things that are going on in the general council and that works best, he can do that. And he can learn about some of the things that are going on within our executive branch that we don't necessarily talk about as a part of the general council meeting affairs, whether it's something bureaucratic that's happening on the backside in the sense of like some of this website stuff that I'm talking about. And so you just get a perspective that will include everything for the general council, as well as then those executive managerial and oversight aspects for the organization. And so he's in there to keep informed, get that perspective, learn what's going on with student government and students as a part of the university. If there's more that you have to add as a part of that, but it's just something we're extending to our student trustees to keep informed so that he can take that student perspective to the Board of Trustees in as effective way as possible as he can.
All right, anything else?
Bring
Any
back the
other
truck.
questions from the floor? 2 minutes at a time. What's going to happen? Oh.
Derek?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion seconded. All in favor? All right, meeting adjourned.
Minute early. Good job. Good job.